going on here.
Right.
Let's talk about the hard numbers today. So 81.9.
Yeah. 81.9% of the counties that are most likely to lose jobs if there is a U.S.-China trade war are counties that voted for Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, which I think is evidence that the Chinese know exactly what they're doing. They are targeting, we've even got a map in Signal this week that shows where soy is produced in the United States on an overlay of swing states. The Chinese know exactly what they're doing. It's not about the big number, 50 or 100 billion. It's really, can you target your pain in a way that takes advantage of the U.S. electoral system? Another couple of numbers that I really wanted to highlight. A lot of news out of Brazil this week, but there was a study from Vanderbilt University that produced a really, I think, alarming result that said that 40% of people surveyed in Brazil say, hey, if it would help us fight crime and corruption, we favor military rule in our country. This in a country where you had military rule from 1964 to 1985 in ways that still produces pain in that country. And the last number, we're closing the week of the 50-year anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. We've written about Dr. King last week and this week. We found a poll taken in August of 1966, 20 months before the assassination, that said only 33% of Americans at that time had a favorable view of Martin Luther King. Only 12% had a highly favorable view, and 44% had a highly unfavorable view of a man whose birthday is now a federal holiday. It's just another reminder that there are so many things that seem really obvious to us today that were very different in a very different country 50 years ago.
We have talked about that all this week on CBSN and on CBS News generally, which is that, at the end of his life, Dr. King was demoralized. He still held out hope, but a lot of people, especially in the North, where, when they had watched images that were broadcast on CBS News and written about in newspapers of police officers using hoses and fire hoses and dogs on children, they said things have got to change. Once the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed, a lot of people in the North said, well, all right, we've given you what you wanted.
Why are you still marching?
Why are you still marching? Why are you still protesting? And Dr. King said there's a lot more to do. There's the war that he was against. He was supporting a lot of unions and labor issues in the country. And people started to say, look, you're a rabble-rouser. In fact, one of the reporters that we talked to said that if you look at the way that the people treat Black Lives Matter and other activists today in 2018, it's exactly the same way that they thought of Dr. King. And now he's this sort of martyr, and for a lot of people, this saint that they look up to across the country. You have the President of the United States talking about him in a tweet where it's sort of been what somebody called a whitewashing of that legacy.
And if you listen to the interviews, I'm sure you've played a lot of them this week, from Congressman John Lewis or former UN Ambassador Andrew Young, who were there, who were shoulder to shoulder with Dr. King on a lot of these marches. They say the main thing that Dr. King had to say in private was, I haven't done nearly enough. I haven't done enough. We're not succeeding. We've made progress, but we're so far short of where we need to go. So there was a guy who just realized, I think, that the number of days that he had left were numbered, and he wanted to try and do as much as he could during that time. But again, going back to that portrait of the country in 1966 and how conflicted people were over what was going on is a really interesting way, as you say, of understanding politics today.
Eye-opening indeed. Willis Sparks, thank you, my friend. Have a nice weekend.
You too.
You can check out all these stories and more by subscribing to the Signal newsletter. Sign up for it at GZero Media.